Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today in Mañana. I'm Michael. This is Xavier. We're happy to have you on this beautiful fall day. I already see a lot of the leaves falling. We took a little trip to New York over the weekend, and I was surprised when I came back, where I looked at the backyard, I'm like, where all these leaves come from? They're really starting to fall.
Soon we'll have that carpet of leaves.
Yeah.
But exactly. I need to collect those, so don't go around throwing them away.
No, I never throw them away.
I
don't even want to drive over them with the lawnmower. It's too much work. I'm like, leave them. They'll disappear. Like
no, I need them. I need them this year, so don't throw them away.
Oh, for your compost?
Yeah.
Yeah, he likes to compost, so he needs his...
Well, I need them for something else, too. So.
But I'm excited because this is the time of year now you're ready for the leaves to start changing. They're kind of, they're getting into the yellow phase, but they haven't quite hit the orange phase, which is beautiful. That's when me and the boys were kind of looking at when we want to go for a hike in the
the problem is that sometimes you get that rain and then wind, and before you know it, boom, they're gone.
Yeah,
before
that's what happens. Once it kind of gets orange, you have like a maybe 2 weeks shot to go like to the park and Shenandoah National Park and do a nice hike and look at all the trees with the leaves because, like you said, you get one little windy day and then they're all gone. They go from orange leaves to now they're all empty. So
I know this is house. By our neighborhood, got this beautiful. I don't know if I don't know what kind of tree it is, oak tree, maple, whatever. But it's so funny because it's beautiful. It turns all that. I don't know if you remember, it turns yellow and then gold. Mm-hmm. But then when it gets windy or whatever, the whole top comes off and all you see is the bottom.
Yeah,
it looks so weird. Just the bottom has leaves and the top's all kind of without leaves.
We have some trees in our backyard that already lost all their leaves because the summer was so dry. It was like they all turned brown.
Yeah, they decided that they had enough.
They had enough. But as always, we are happy to be presented by Emergent Financial Services, powered by Matthias Realty, Castle Hill Cider, Craddock Serious Insurance, and Forward Adelante, the premier Latino networking business group in Virginia.
Wonderful.
Did I do that right?
Oh, you did that perfect, yeah.
I know. I don't want to get a message from Olga being like, he did terrible on the
He didn't say that right.
He didn't say that right.
And don't forget to share and like and share.
Yeah.
And subscribe.
3
things.
Yeah, 3 things, okay. Yeah, you kind of fumbled a little bit at the end, but that's okay.
Fumbled, but I recovered the fumble.
You recovered.
There you are.
You recovered your fumble.
That's right.
Yeah. That's more than what other teams are saying right now. Right? Like, I'm not going to UVA football is like terrible this year.
Yeah, we're not going into that right now.
I know. A lot of the teams we've been rooting for are terrible this year, but we're not even going to
go into that. What a year. That's right.
But I don't know about you. You ready to start?
Well, yes, because I'm telling you, we got really wonderful stuff here at our table, and I'd like to find out what it's all about.
So we are happy to be joined now by Cass Cannon from Peg Salt. Cass, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning, Xavier and Michael.
Good morning.
Good morning. So tell us a little bit about yourself, how you started Peg Salt, and what made you kind of want to jump into that entrepreneurial side of yourself.
First, thanks for having me, and I'm going to dub you guys the delicious duo because we're talking about flavor today.
Cass already got us our nickname.
I'm going to write that down because I don't want to forget it.
It sounds like you both enjoy food and cooking, so
we definitely
you're going to be excited about Peg Salt.
We enjoy food.
We enjoy the eating part.
Yeah, the cooking part we haven't quite mastered liking that yet.
Yeah. Well, it's not a matter of liking. It's just that we become such foodies because we were blessed that my mom, his wife, is such an amazing cook that we got spoiled with all this delicious food that now it's like if we even attempt to cook something, it's going to taste terrible and we're going to be like, I'm done with this.
Unless you put Peg Salt.
Those days are over. Those days are over because you put a pinch of Pegs on anything you cook or eat, and it's delicious, guaranteed. I'm not overstating that.
So, how did you start Peg Salt?
Yeah.
My mother, Peg, back in the 70s in Ohio, she loved to cook, and so she would make food for friends and so on, and just kind of out of the blue, she mixed up a batch of seasoned salt, and she was very proud. Oh, I'm giving this to my friends, and she put it in bags and distributed it around, and when people tried it, they wanted more, so she became kind of famous among friends and friends' children when they went to college and so on. People would say, I need more of that salt because I can't cook without it. And I was the same way, and so that went on for decades. The one thing I did do, and this is a warning to anybody who has family recipes, make them write it down. Because I was like, Mom, you're not going to live forever. Write it down. And after much nagging, she did. So I started giving it away to friends. Same result. They were like, oh, it makes everything perfect. I put it on steak. I made scrambled eggs yesterday. My husband was like, what did you do to this meal, and so it got a really good reputation, and that kind of emboldened me because I thought maybe something that people kind of get addicted to would be worth selling. So
Exactly.
I, in 2012, just started the company and ended up naming it Peg Salt since it was my mother's product.
Beautiful.
Wow, that's
beautiful.
amazing.
So-
It's funny, sorry to interrupt, it's
No.
funny how you talked about having your mom write down the recipe, because sometimes we have that with my dad's mom, my abuelita, right, as we call her. You know, we're always like, oh, we needed her to write down recipes, right? And she would do that. And then every once in a while, my mom would try to cook something from abuelita's recipe. We're like, why isn't it the same?
It's never the
It's
same.
never, it's
I
never
know,
the same, you know.
it's
But
not.
I mean, I'm one of the suspicious minds because other members of my other side of the family were often notorious for they would leave a little something out. This way, it's like no one could ever make it quite
That
as
mystery
good.
spice or
Exactly, you
something.
know. So
I have
sometimes
a-
I wonder whether my abuelita would just like leave one little thing out. This way, we're always like, oh, abuelita, you know, mommy tried to make the tortilla but wasn't as good as yours, and you're like, I know, because then I'm like, wait a second, maybe she forgot to add something. This way, it's like it's never comes out.
Yeah,
the same.
and those omissions, I think when you're an intuitive cook, it's not so deliberate because measuring anything and writing it down is really hard when you're there just at the stove, throwing stuff and
Exactly.
tasting it, little bit of this, little bit of
Exactly.
And so
They're
I
like,
think
oh,
the
just a
recipe,
pinch or a handful. It's
Exactly,
Like,
that's
how
what
much is
happens.
that? Like my hand, what's a pinch for you? What's a handful
Yeah.
for
That's
you?
right, and the recipe ends up being a little different, not by design, it's just it's an art.
And that's
You
true,
can't
because
write it
sometimes
down.
you'll go to people's homes, they'll cook you, let's say, somebody cooks a lasagna, somebody else cooks a lasagna also, and you go, they're completely different, right?
Right,
And it's
right.
because however they were raised or whatever they put into it, it's just different. You know, the meat sauce and how much meat sauce they put in, and how much cheese they put in, how they cook
Yeah.
their pasta, do they salt their pasta before they cook it or done? So all those little details that when you begin to taste things, it changes the flavor of
And
the
all
dish.
that love that goes into
Oh,
it. You
yes.
can't write that down, so.
Can't write that down. But tell us, because I mean, I see like tons of
Oh, I'll
bags
show you-
and
I'll show you
cans,
what I
and,
have here.
and I'm just curious as to what's in them.
Okay, this is Peg Salt, the original. This is Mom's version. She did not really accurately measure, so even when I got the recipe, I had to kind of rework it. But yes, I started making that in 2012, and my first store was Carriage Foods down on Barracks Road.
Okay.
But it's just a mix of salt and spices, large quantities of one thing, like it's got parsley, it's got garlic, it's got black pepper, it has tarragon, it has marjoram, oregano,
Wow.
all that
So
stuff.
just about everything.
But the symphony of flavors and how my mother came up with it, I was never one to say, like, Mom is a genius. She was a great cook, but she was a flavor genius because it has a tendency to just point up the flavor of anything you put it on without overtaking the flavor. So that's why everything in the meal can have Peg Salt.
Exactly.
And that's why next time you gentlemen want to make anything in the kitchen, you can
Just put Peg
confidently
Salt?
put that on there, and people will say, wow,
Exactly.
you know what you're
You
doing.
guys are good cooks.
Mama's got competition now. Hopefully she's not watching the show this way she doesn't realize what we're doing. She's
That's
like,
right, yeah.
when did
Well,
you
hi,
guys
Peg
get so
Salt.
good? Oh, we just been practicing, that's all
Yeah,
right.
right. So that's the original. I've got pounds of Peg Salt, and then I came out because it was distributed at Whole Foods. Pink salt and natural sea salt is a big deal for a lot of people.
Exactly.
So came out with
And where does the pink salt come from?
Pink Himalayan salt comes
Himalayan.
from Pakistan.
Okay.
And then I used 4 different sea salts because all these herbs and spices are in like a suspension, so it takes something to hold together. So for better or worse, that's what I came up with. So there's Peg's pink salt. And then just recently in the past, well, like 3-4 years, we've got Peg's popcorn salt. And I would like to point
Oh.
out it's National Popcorn Popping Month. So
Is it really?
Really? No
popcorn
wonder
salt
popping
and
popcorn,
our
yeah.
popcorn products are on sale.
So what's
at
in there? So is
pegsalt.com.
it like dried butter or something?
No,
or
this
what's,
is peg salt, ground fine, but then I also mix it with some sea salt, again, to get the flavor
Okay.
just distributed right.
across? Gotcha.
And then we have, just since it's popcorn popping month, we have this very attractive popcorn kit.
Oh, that comes with the
Huge.
pegs.
It has
Gotcha.
a popper,
Gotcha. It's
butter
got-
flavored olive oil, Peg's popcorn salt, and little bags so you can share it with your friends, and even a jar of Peg salt in there. So
Okay, and
that's
I
very
see
popular.
Peppy salt. What is peppy salt?
That's our newest creation. It just came out this month. And peppy salt is peg salt with heat. So it has cayenne, turmeric, chili powder, paprika, and it's very red, but it's awesome for smoked meats, grilled things, taco seasonings, Spanish rice. And I'm very proud of this because these are all now my own creations. This is just
so
mom's
this is
salt,
something you came up with, not
further. Yeah.
Not your mom. Okay.
And it's weird because I don't have that great of sense of flavor, I don't think, but I sort of channel my mom when I'm putting these together. And then we took the salt out of peg salt. So for a salt-free seasoning that's killer good, it's not bland
Pegs
or
no
anything.
salt.
No salt. Pegs, no salt.
So that's just herbs?
Just
different
herbs and spices. But what we do at home is I use peg salt on a roast or something. But
Right,
if you don't want to overdo your salt, you just get this puppy and put peg salt on it, and it makes it more herby and zesty without adding sodium.
Interesting.
Exactly. So I guess for those people that have high blood pressure,
Right.
they could use that.
So now we've got
and still
everybody
have-
covered.
still have-
Everybody's
People
happy.
say,
Yeah.
I can't eat salt, and it's like, ta-da, now you can.
Wow.
Can I ask a question? So I don't know if maybe this might be a silly question, but is there a difference in how the salts taste when you talk about the pink salt and the sea salt and then the more traditional salt? Or is it just more of people want something more natural?
More elite chefs than I would say yes to that question, but honestly, I can't tell. It's sort of the same to me.
Got it.
Yeah.
But I do, I want to give a shout out since you're the I Love CVille show. My second year of business, I went to the Community Investment Collaborative's Entrepreneur Network. So I was in like their second cohort class years ago. But they were very helpful in devising your business plan, articulating things, getting it down on paper, and also paved the way to get in Whole Foods Market, which was just opening here in Charlottesville back then. So they're still going strong and helping entrepreneurs
No, I mean,
like
we've had
Wow. How
tons,
many?
dozens of entrepreneurs from CIC come on the show. We're good friends with them. We know the people run it. It's an amazing organization. So it's amazing to see even you.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Years ago.
I feel like the ancient crone of the entrepreneurial classes because it was like the second one.
So you started this in 2012?
Yes.
Okay, and so that's when actually Whole Foods moved to the new location. Because there used to be a Whole Foods by where like Home Good is, I think that's what I said.
Home Goods,
That's where they used to be,
Yeah.
and then they moved, so that's when.
They relocated.
Okay. All right. Wow, that's fantastic.
So how long does it take you to kind of come up with a new salt recipe? Like, what is that process like?
That's a great question. To actually do it, it's probably just a few hours. Once, like the peppy, it was like, I made 5 different things. But then you have to design packaging, and you have to think about how much you're going to make at a time, and supplies, because sourcing like 25 different spices, spices are global, so it really puts you in touch with things all over the world. Like black pepper shot up because things went wrong in Indonesia for a while. My parsley's from Israel, so I'm thinking maybe I better get some parsley while I can.
Yeah.
So anyway, working out the details takes years. And that I'm just lazy. I probably don't do it as fast as I want to because we can't kick it up to R&D because that would be me. We can't kick it up to marketing because that would be me and all of that.
So like when you're kind of like when you come up with a new, for example, the peppy salt, like how do you process like, okay, this is when it's right, or would you like figure out it's like, no, it needs more spice, or it needs less spice, or it needs more cayenne, or maybe more paprika, something like that. Like, how does that work in your mind?
That's the spooky part. That's where I feel like I'm channeling Mom because she died, before the company was made or anything, so she never really saw peg salt. But I think her steady hand is out there because people love and share it in a way that's just crazy good. So yeah, I really do. It's just intuitive, like listening to music, and that lands right. Yes, that's right. And then I share it with friends and say,
I was
I was about to say, is it like a test? Like run?
Well, my husband and I married about a year and a half ago, and we got married in our backyard, and we made pork, chicken, and shrimp, all seasoned with peg salt or beef. And the guests made street tacos out of everything, and everything was really peg salt seasoned, and the peppy was sort of the star of the show because that's what the meats were seasoned with. So I got a lot of validation that way too.
Exactly.
That's good, yeah.
Now, I also remember we once had a gentleman here, and we were talking about creating, whether it be, seasoning or sauces or whatever. And I asked him, you go from creating a small batch to having to create, large batches for sale. Is the ratio different once you get to the large batches, or in this case, because they're dry goods, are they the same?
That's an excellent question, and the answer is I don't really know because I still hand mix every batch, roughly 10 to 12 pounds at a time, the way Mom did it, because I think the method has a lot to do with how great it tastes and how it pulls together. So I don't think you could just bring a truckload of salt and dump everything in and stir it up. You wouldn't have peg salt. It won't work that way.
So these are actually all hand mixed by you.
They are. It's like a symphony of discrete flavors because they go in individually. There's not really just throw it. Even though that would be efficient, I'm really inefficient. But it tastes great every time.
You love doing what you're doing, right? So this is something that is part of you, and it's not a matter of, I'm not trying to create this huge conglomerate company. I just want to be able to share this with, as many people as I can. But
and it's grown organically, which is the amazing thing. Is it's in probably about 400 stores now, maybe more. And I still hand mix every batch because one thing about salt is it almost lasts forever, so the shelf life's great.
Exactly.
And
herbs too. I mean, once it dried, that's the beauty of them.
Yeah, and the churn is kind of such that I just keep going along, and it pops up. And the holidays, of course, will be really busy.
I can imagine. No, that reminds me of a funny meme that I once saw about one person was buying Himalayan salt in the store, and it had it's a 2,000-year-old Himalayan salt. It said expires, in 2024, and the guy's like, it's 2,000 years old and it's going to expire in 2 years.
How's that happening?
How's that happening? But,
throw it out, buy some more of my stuff.
That's part of the bureaucracy of food production and safety issues and things like that. But we do put a 3-year shelf life.
Yeah.
But Mom passed, and there was a crock of her salt next to the stove for 12 years, and whenever we'd go home, see my dad, we would use that crock, and it was still good. It still was ticking 12 years.
The flavor's probably even better. Who knows how intense it is now, all those years. And,
absolutely, yeah.
It's like leftovers food. I don't know if everyone that has that. Everyone said there's certain foods that when you make it that day,
stews
it tastes good.
in particular, right?
But then if you wait the next day,
as
a leftover, suddenly it's even better. It's like, wow. I said, why did we eat this yesterday? We should have made it, waited a day, and then eat it.
I think Indian food comes off that way. The leftovers always seem to have a little extra something.
Yeah, that flavor becomes intense, and it gets absorbed into the meats or whatever, and you can just taste it better.
That could be the next idea. Do you have a peg salt with a lot of curry, for Indian food or anything?
I don't have a feel for the curry, and it's so complex. I feel like other people might do it better. I did develop a pepper, and I'm very proud of it, but it's a whole lot of work to make and expensive. But the idea is what peg salt does to salt, what could you do with pepper? So it layers flavors of pepper with different spices and things to make it more pepper-like, but it's not just pepper.
Yeah. That's the beauty about this, right? In other words, everything's already mixed in for you. Because let's be honest, sometimes you have some recipes where you need the marjoram and you need some dried parsley and the tarragon, and so now you got to go out and buy all these different herbs. Sometimes you don't use them, sometimes you do, and then you run out of one, you don't have the other one, whatever. This is one way where you have everything in one little container.
True.
And then boom, you just apply it to whatever meats you or whatever you're cooking, and it's perfect.
It's delicious and convenient, really. In reality, you don't have to worry about I remember sometimes with my mom, we don't have the most organized spice cabinet. She's like, "Oh, get me this." I'm looking. I'm like, "No, that's garlic powder. No, that's onion powder." It's I gotta look through 500 different spices. But now it's oh, good. It's what do I need? Oregano, parsley, salt. Perfect. This already has it.
That's right.
Right. And
peg salt,
in
perfect.
a recipe, if you use peg salt, it just gives the salt that much more dimension. So even if you do every different spice, because I had a friend who had award-winning barbecue sauce, and he used peg salt instead of his salt. And his friends picked up on it. They were like, we didn't think this could get any better, but what did you do? And he said, I used peg salt instead of salt. So
wow.
It's for real.
Now I'm even
It's for
excited.
real.
Maybe we should give this to Mama. I was gonna hide it from her at first because I wanted to believe like, yo, our cooking improved. And maybe
I'm thinking we should buy maybe like a steak that's like a couple of days or something and just use some of the
I
pig
know.
salt
I'm
on
gonna
top
put
of
on
the
my
steak,
eggs. Fool.
you know?
What the heck,
Yeah,
right?
in the morning.
It's really good on
Yeah.
eggs. That's a good entry level.
Try that peppy one on
recipe.
your eggs.
Yeah, that's
Come
good.
on. Come on.
In the morning, I don't know how much spice I
Who
want. in the
cares?
morning.
It's the morning. It'll pep up the whole day.
We'll make it next time we make picadillo. We'll put the little spice.
There you
How
are.
about that, huh? So it's been wonderful having you, Cass. So before we let you go, where can people find you?
Pegsalt.com. That's
Okay.
PEGSSALT. We sell on Amazon. We're on Food Lines, Local Goodness Shelves,
Okay.
Whole Foods Markets, Foods of All Nations, Reed's Market. I'm going to overlook, Mickey Tavern and the Virginia
Wow.
Shop.
So the store at Mickey Tavern down there. The store, right?
At the store, and they cook with it.
Oh, they cook with it,
Really
too.
cook
No
with
wonder
it.
why the food's always so delicious.
Before
We try
I
to go there
came
every
here,
year.
Before I came here, I dropped off 120 pounds to
Wow.
Mickey Tavern.
Wow.
All hand mixed.
Yep.
How long does it take you to mix like 1 pound?
Well, I do 12
12 at a time.
batches
12
at a time,
Okay.
which is roughly 120, 150. So
Okay.
it takes an hour, hour and a half
Okay.
or something like
All right.
that.
Wow.
But, I've
You
got it
must
down
build up
now.
muscle
It's
now.
all, it's all up here.
It's all up
so
there.
let's go
Oh, you're
at
not
it.
writing it down. Someday you got to write it down.
Yeah, I know. Well, it is that.
Well, Cass, it's been
Wonderful,
wonderful.
Cass.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so
coming
much.
on.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Wow, that was great.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
good, that's
hearing
good.
an entrepreneur story. I love how
Yeah.
Peg was Cass's mom, and
Yeah, I know.
she took her family recipe, and that's so many times how it starts, especially when it becomes like food related. Like it was like, like one person started making this little product, and then they shared it with their neighbors. Neighbors were like, "This is amazing. You have to make me more." So then they're like, "Okay, maybe I'll expand it a little more to like outside my neighborhood and more to like
Yeah.
the city." And then some people say, "Oh, this is amazing," and then they're like, maybe I could actually sell this. And then that's kind of how it gets started, right?
Yeah,
It's like suddenly they're like, no, I'm going to start a little business, and then I'm going to start selling it to all these stores, and then it takes off, and it's pretty great to see.
Yeah, and it's courageous. Let's be honest. I mean, starting your own business, no matter when you do it, there's some nervousness to it, right? Because you have a passion, you want to do it, but it's like, oh wow, I got to take care of all of this, and how do I do it? And so to see this is pretty amazing. I
Yeah,
mean, I
and
tip my
luckily for
hats off to
Cass, like she said, she grew organically too.
Yeah.
There wasn't really a rush process, so it's like you kind of build little by little.
Exactly.
I think like building blocks is much better than
Yeah.
trying to jump into something big, like, oh, I'm going to mass produce this salt, and then you're trying to find a factory and workers, and
That's
then
right.
it's like,
Exactly.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That was great. It was great.
that was great. And then from one great guest to another, we're excited now to be joined by Molly Bossardt from Bread and Butter Digital Marketing. So we got the salt, and now we got the bread and butter. So, this
That's funny.
so it's wonderful having you on. So
Yes, thank you.
tell us about yourself and how you started Bread and Butter Digital Marketing.
Yeah. So similar. I kind of fell into this, so to speak. I was living in New York City before the pandemic. So pandemic came, New York shut down. I grew up here. I decided to get out of the city, like a lot of people did. And I moved home. I moved in with my mother, and I was looking around at the small businesses here and seeing like their social media presence, their website presence, and I just noticed that there was a gap, and that they really needed some support with their digital presence, and especially if you compare it to small businesses in New York, I could really see that stark difference. So I really slowly got like one client and started doing website design, and then I did some social media management for them. I have a marketing background, so it was
Okay.
natural for me to do this. I wasn't just like,
Is that what you did in the city?
yes.
Okay.
And I also did real estate in the city, so I had done a lot of things in the city. Yeah. Right before I left, I was doing real estate, so it was a little wild
Wow.
to be a real estate agent and working for a team right before COVID hit.
Yeah,
And
I can imagine.
obviously it was wild, yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of how it started, and then it evolved into, I took on more and more clients. It was a very slow, I was like intentionally slow in growing my business as well. I wasn't sure which area I wanted to niche into, and now I'm more or less focused on working with wineries and
Okay.
helping support them. That's been like a big passion of mine. I love wine. I love the wine industry. The wine industry is having a major problem in capturing a younger audience. And I think a big gap there is marketing and communicating to younger people. So that's from like 25 to even 45. That
Oh, really?
age range is just not buying like other generations have.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And so how are some of the ways that you help these wineries kind of reach the younger generation?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it I think is being active on social media
Okay.
and, portraying the correct image on social media. Wine can be something that's very intimidating, right? So I think also making it less intimidating, less stuffy. That's, one way. I also, practically speaking, I do digital advertising, so Facebook and Google ads for clients. And so pushing their e-commerce products on those avenues also helps.
And would you say, how about like Instagram, for example? Because I understand
Yes.
that the youth seems to gravitate more towards the quick picture or, quick snapshot or whatever Instagram does. I'm not on Instagram, so I wouldn't know, but that's what I hear.
Yeah, Instagram is huge. That's kind of, I have a art background actually, so I went to Sotheby's Institute of Art. I have a master's in art business, so I come from like a very visually minded background that is focused a lot on branding and creating strong brand and visual presence. So I bring that into everything that I do.
Right.
I would say that I hire really talented photographers and videographers to help me create content for clients, and we really lead with creating visually appealing content for clients to make them stand out and really to match the quality of their wine with having a quality brand image.
Okay.
Because I think sometimes what, businesses get wrong, especially on Instagram, is, they're using iPhone photos or like the lighting isn't great. They're just not prioritizing the quality of the image. And I think people associate having the quality of a wine, if the package and the image isn't portraying something beautiful, I think people question if the wine is actually valuable.
Interesting. That's
So
a
do
good
you
point.
also focus like on how their image looks in terms of like their logo and stuff like that? Like if someone just has a stuffy, Xavier's wine, like would you be like, okay,
That'll sell like crazy.
Yeah, I don't think so. Well, I don't see why I get drunk fast, maybe, I don't know. But for example, if like someone had just something plain like Xavier's wine, would you be like, okay, we need to elaborate the design more, we need something more appealing, that young people will look at that, not just the wine itself, but maybe how it looks, the logo itself, and
Right.
be like, this needs to kind of appeal to younger people. It's like, it's interesting, it looks like I actually want to drink something from that bottle.
Yeah, branding is like a whole nother avenue that
Okay.
I tend to not necessarily get into with my clients. It depends. That also goes into like product design as well.
Okay.
And I think that having those conversations, it just takes a lot of time to appeal to a younger demographic. So I think I'm happy to facilitate those conversations and kind of start them off, and then pull in the right people who are, doing logo design and package design and things like that. That's just not really what we specialize in. We really do focus in on the digital marketing. So that's going to be social media management, content creation, digital advertising.
Now, I've heard some people say that, like, quantity is sometimes better than quality. Do you feel that way? Like, just more posts on social media is better than just doing one post a day, but it's nice. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
Okay.
Especially, I'm thinking about Instagram. I think it is important to show up. However, I think people are getting inundated with information and content. And if you are not providing value, like, it's just noise and it's going to bother people, right? So personally, no, I don't think you should just post to post. I think you need to post relevant information that your audience is going to care about.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that, right? Because one of the things that in today's world, we just get bombarded, right? With ads and news. Even in today's world, sometimes I see my wife, she's watching the YouTube on somebody cooking, whatever, and boom, there's an ad, and I'm saying, holy cow, there's like ads on YouTube also. So it's like you just get bombarded, and all you're doing is kind of like, trying to go as fast as you can get out of these ads.
Yeah.
But if there's something that of high quality or good, I suspect your eye catches it. Wait a minute, what is this, right? As opposed to seeing the same one over and over, you just get tired of it.
Right.
So the name Bread and Butter Marketing, what kind of prompted that?
It's funny. Because I'm going to be changing the name, so we're going to be doing a little rebrand. I can't tell you, like, it just came to me. I don't know. I mean, I was doing a lot of, I was living at home with my mom, right? I'm like in my 30s, living at home with my mother during, the few months of lockdown. So if you envision, I'm like spending a lot of time in nature, a lot of time thinking, a lot of time reflecting, and it just like came to me, Bread and Butter. But there is another company that does digital marketing that's called Bread and Butter. So they're not in Virginia, so there's no like legal repercussions as of now. But I definitely want to change the name because I think it's a little bit confusing.
Do you have any ideas? You already know what you want to change it to?
I do.
Is it something you can share on the show or not yet? It's all right if you can't.
I'm going to keep it to myself for now. Yeah. I mean, I haven't really like created a new logo design or done any of that quite yet. So I'm focusing also on trying to attract different niches.
Okay.
So, we kind of have, done some work in the wine industry, as you know, but I'm interested in working with some other niches, bringing that back into play. Because when I first started, we were working with like every type of small business, basically.
Right.
So a little rebrand, and then focusing in on content creation, social media management primarily, and again, some of that digital advertising for particular clients, with decent budgets.
So when you're doing digital marketing for wineries, because there are a lot of wineries in Virginia, how do you help clients differentiate their winery from others? I mean, that might be a tricky question, but if you can't answer, I understand. But
I think a lot of the focus can be on like the people of your winery. I know that people really connect to other people, right? So I think about some of my clients.
That's a good point.
And so bringing their patrons come and they feel connected to the people who are serving their wine, right? Especially you think about their wine club members. They really love the winemaker. Like they love the wine story. So it's beyond just like the wine. They're connected to the people. So I think showcasing your people is definitely very helpful in differentiating yourself, because that is, part of what makes you different.
No, that's a good answer. Yeah, because I was thinking about that, like different wineries, but I think, emphasizing their story, how they built the business, that's always interesting. And I think sometimes people can connect to that.
Yeah.
Sort of like, this is how I started my winery. This is how I make the wine. This is my process. This is who we are. I think that can be very attractive when you kind of like, where do I want to go? Because sometimes you feel like
there's so many options.
There's so many options.
Yeah, and I think also just being aware of what does make you different, right? Some of my clients, one in particular is in Northern Virginia, and they are a reservation-only system, right? So it's a little bit more of like a elevated experience. There are no dogs there. There are no children there. So it really does like elevate the experience. And so trying to create that same vibe, for lack of a better word, on digital to communicate that message is something that we help, our clients do. Prior to working with us, they were just posting, very infrequently, and it was like low quality content.
Right. Now, when you talk to the wineries, do they have in mind a target, not necessarily audience, but a target customer that they'd like to either, brand to? In other words, maybe there are those that say, I want the 55 and over, or those that say, I want the 25 to 45, or do they say, no, I want them all? But I mean, is there a sense that their labels and their wine and their experience really are focusing towards a particular, audience?
That's a great question. I think it really depends on the customer. I think that they have so my clients, it depends on them, but I think they all have a pretty good understanding of who's actually currently purchasing their wine. And usually they do have an idea of like, they either want more of that population, right? Or they want a closer I mean, they want to grow. Everybody.
Yeah, okay. They
everybody
want to
wants
expand.
grow.
I know
They want to
we
expand.
already captured this. How do
Yeah.
we now capture this particular group of people that we like to make sure that they start tasting our wine?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's got to be difficult. I mean, because for me, obviously, wine is, it's a tasting experience, right? It's visual. The labels sometimes do catch my attention, right? But more than anything else is I'll buy a bottle because I want to taste it and then see whether I like it or not. If I like it, then I continue to buy it. That must be hard though in any advertising to like, how does it taste? But rather it's like attracting people to say, yeah, that looks good either visually or by what they've shown me, whether they was compared with food in the picture or whatever. Yeah, I think I'd like to try that, right?
Yeah. There's this woman, and I'm forgetting her name right now, who I follow on Instagram, who's amazing, and she's actually a consumer psychologist, and she goes into your choices are probably very subconscious on how you're choosing what wines you would like to purchase. So a lot of it has to do with label design. A lot of it has to do with just, in the store, how the store is set up. And also like your personal experience with particular varietals or particular wine regions,
of course, yes.
right?
Yeah.
So like those are going to influence your decisions on how you purchase and what you purchase.
Yeah.
And then, so it is really interesting. I think there's a lot of psychology that goes into those like just buying decisions, right? Anyway.
Do you help wineries design their label?
No.
I don't. I'm not a graphic designer, so
Okay.
I don't do that. But
Do you help in any way and saying if you want to capture this audience, you might want to think of this or that?
I definitely get involved in those conversations with my clients. So we have some of that. However, that's a bigger
Yeah, I can imagine.
process,
Yeah.
and it's a bigger conversation. So it's not typically, and it takes a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
So like changing a label design or even releasing new wines, it takes a very, very long time to do all of that. So it's definitely something that I talk to my clients about often. And even down to like the types of wine that young people are consuming is different from the types of wine that older people are consuming. So younger people tend to consume easier drinking white wines.
Okay.
Versus, older people are generally gravitating toward like bigger, bolder reds. That's a generalization,
Does
so
that
I don't
make
want
me
any
old? I was about to say, I'm a
well, and yeah,
That describes me for sure.
yeah,
though.
right, yeah.
So that's kind of what we're seeing. Also, younger people are interested in more unique varietals. So we're seeing that's definitely different from like previous, younger people. I mean, I'm saying millennials. We're not necessarily young. It's like people in their 30s. And other generations really used wine as kind of a status indicator. So they would go for, the more elite,
Right.
status-driven, like the Bordeaux's and things of that nature, the Burgundies. And now you're seeing younger people are just curious and they want to try unique wines. They're interested in trying wines from Portugal, and Portugal has like 1 million native varietals, and so it's just really interesting. There's a big difference there, and I think Virginia has something where they can appeal to that audience because Virginia is really like focusing in on a couple of grapes that are unique to Virginia. So
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, actually, that's even better, right? Because when you think about it, every region has its own terrain, its own climate.
Right.
And so there's some grapes that may grow better here than somewhere else and vice versa. So to try to grow, what makes a good Bordeaux here, and you go, it's not quite working,
Yeah.
then why bother, right?
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Yeah, one thing what I've noticed, I don't want to get into wines, of course, because it's
No,
all
it's okay.
digital.
It's all right. I love wine, so we can talk about
But
it.
I noticed that there's a lot more rosés that I've ever seen in the past. I mean,
Yeah.
when I was growing up, rosé was, you hardly even saw rosé, and nobody even drank rosé because it was like, what's a rosé? It's not white, it's not red, it can't be any,
It's both, really.
I know.
Yeah.
But now there's just so much, and maybe that is also gravitating more to the younger, folks.
Definitely.
Okay.
It's more, I mean, gluggable, I suppose you could say. It's an easier drinking wine.
exactly.
And I think a lot of times too, like rosé is an afterthought. And I think more and more people are realizing it shouldn't be an afterthought. Let's like prioritize this, right? Like let's focus in on creating good rosé instead of it just being like, we'll do it with our leftover grapes.
Yeah, I was just
going to
we got leftover. Let's just make a rosé.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you've mentioned your love of wine. Is that really kind of what prompted you to kind of, did you search
Niche into
out,
wines?
yeah, your niche into wines? Like, did that prompt you to kind of reach out to wineries about marketing, or was it just something that you realized a lot of wineries were coming to you about marketing, and you're like, well, I love wine, I love wineries, let me just kind of focus on this part of my business?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was definitely driven by my passion and love for wine. I worked at a tasting room years ago pouring wine and kind of fell in love with it then. I also studied abroad in Italy, and we just, in Florence, and
Jealous.
yeah, it was a long time ago, but it
Yeah.
was great. It was amazing. And so we were drinking wine, you know, I was 19 studying abroad, drinking like literally they had water bottles. We would fill up water bottles with wine.
I like that.
They had
I
like
love
wine
Italy,
on
right?
tap. Yeah, it's amazing. And it was €2 or €1 to fill up. So that's kind of where I started drinking wine. That was all red wines. And my father is a chef, so I have this like foodie background. So I think food and wine are like
Absolutely.
perfectly married and a perfect pair. So that's kind of, it's just been a love affair with wine and learning about, I'm also a traveler, so wine is so much about place. And I think it's really fun, and it connects me to a physical place. When I get a bottle of wine from, Sardinia, I can like envision myself in Sardinia, right?
Yeah.
Like drinking Vermentino in Sardinia, and I like, it's this whole, it's a whole experience.
No, that's true. That's what we always love about wine. We always try to find different places, different wines, and we're kind of like pairing it with the food. And my brother Nick is like very strict about like, no, you can't drink that wine with that food, right? It's like, oh, that's a red. It's like, no, you got to get like a Brunello or something like that. Okay, all right.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I mean, there are some rules, but you can be a little flexible with the food and wine pairing.
I know, but sometimes you kind of want.
Well, what he likes is if the food comes from a region and,
you
for example,
wanna find
Italy,
the
then he feels like you should find the wine from that region, because obviously that probably matches
It's true,
really
yeah.
well.
If you're having a Tuscan pasta dish, he's like, well, get a Chianti Classico because that's from Tuscany, so you want to kind of pair that with it. So
I mean, and then it's fun because it becomes more of an experience of like
Absolutely.
this place and its culture.
it's almost like a kind of game puzzle. It's like, okay, if you have this food, what wine do you kind of pair with it? It's like, oh, now I get excited. Like, okay, now you can figure out which wine you want to pair with it. So.
Totally.
Yeah. So before we let you go, Molly, where can people find you?
So I am online at breadandbutter, digitalmarketing.com. It's very, very long, but I'm sure it's going to be linked wherever we are.
Yep.
And I will be rebranding, but I should switch everything over and just get a redirect. To the new
Is there an
website.
Instagram people can follow that this way they know when you kind of change your name, they're like up to date on?
Yeah, it's bread and butter.
Bread and butter on Instagram. Okay.
Yeah.
And same for Facebook?
Yeah, I think it's bread and butter. Actually, I might need to check on that.
Okay. It's all right. Online afterwards.
But you
Judah
can
will
actually,
post all the links.
you can follow me because I post a lot of stuff on my personal account. So it's Molly Bossardt, which is pretty easy to find.
Okay,
Got
that'll be
it.
easy. Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, when you rebrand, you have to come back and tell us what it is.
Yeah.
I know.
We'll have a reveal show maybe, right?
Yeah.
Before
that'd be
you
fun.
announce it, we'll be like, we'll do the drum roll and we'll have
There you
the
are.
fireworks go off.
And we'll have some wine.
Yes.
Well, there you go. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, well, we'll never complain about that. I'm pretty sure we may or may not have drank on the show before.
Love it. Well, thank you guys.
No, thank you so much
Molly.
for
I
coming on,
appreciate
Molly.
it.
It's been
Thank you for
wonderful.
coming. That was
Thank
great.
you.
Yeah.
So before we get on, I mean, actually, it was my job to keep an eye on my phone, and Nicholas has been
He's
sending
been
me.
texting you?
Yeah, because
He
a lot
text
of
me. Yeah.
no, because he knows that you're in charge of. It was my job to look at my phone. So he said, "Peg, this is Nicholas. Peg sent samples to us, and I cooked with them this weekend and shared with my personal page. The delicious samples." Johnny Ornalis liked and shared. Scott Foster was watching. The peppy salt was delicious, he said. Milt McChesney was watching also. Kevin Higgins, shout out from Greenwood, and Peg's biggest fan. So there were a lot of fans, and I guess
fans of Peg,
once Nicholas realized I wasn't,
Did
I wasn't
Nicholas
paid.
share this food with his father and his brother? No.
No, but he shared with his lovely wife. I'm sure. I'm gonna have to actually ask.
He could have shared with us too. I mean, what are we, chopped liver over here?
Obviously.
obviously. But
That was good. It's really interesting, but every time we have guests, right, and entrepreneurs, one of the things is, we always talk about the passion, and you saw Peg with her salts and the passion, the fact that she does it all by herself and she hand mixes every single one, right? And then Molly, and then you can see, Molly obviously enjoys wine, and so she gravitates.
Well, she was working in marketing. She liked marketing. Then suddenly it's like, I like wine, and there's wineries in Charlottesville.
Exactly.
It's like all the dots
it's
connected.
Just the dots connected. And then it makes your job that much more enjoyable because you're doing something that you truly enjoy, you're good at, but you also enjoy what you're now promoting, right? Because I suspect she gets to taste some of the wines at the places that she promotes. Like,
who knows?
Oh, this is really good. Now I can take this picture. And that
I
picture.
didn't realize Molly had the wine background in Tuscany.
I know, it's incredible.
I can't believe €2 filling that bottle of wine.
I know. One or
What's
two,
going
yeah.
on? I
Yeah.
know. And that's
Well,
about
let's
Europe
face
too.
it.
Remember, you can drink at 18. I remember when
Yeah.
they have the same rule in Canada.
Yeah.
Or was it? Yeah, but I was young when I was under 21 when we once went to Austria, and it was like, wow, I can order beers, and they're just like no ID.
No ID, they don't ask.
1 liter beers. You're like, oh, I like this.
Yeah, and let's face it, when we go to Italy, a lot of times in some places you just order the
House wine.
The house wine. One is cheap and it's delicious.
It's delicious, yeah.
And it's like, it's incredible.
I know. We could talk about wine all day.
All day.
Might need like one day just to today on a wine show.
The wine show.
It's like we just bring all our favorite wines. But it's been great having you, Pops.
No, it's been good. Like I said, it was kind of, we were thrown upon this, but and listen, I always enjoy doing the Today Mañana show. It's, it's, I don't do any of the work. Nicholas does all the work, and then you have to lead, or Alex does the lead.
Yeah, you just do the talking.
I just say a couple of things here and there, and then get to enjoy the salt or the wine or whatever.
Well, we get to enjoy the wonderful guests that come
Absolutely.
in.
That's always the fun part.
That's what makes it fun. All these entrepreneurs in Charlottesville, and some connected to CIC.
Yeah.
I also love seeing, like Molly, how she started after the pandemic. I see that all the time.
Yeah.
People I just kind of sat there during the pandemic, reevaluated my life, and said, I'm starting my own business. And then they just took off, and that's great to see. I think we need more of that in this city and even in this country.
Yeah. It was good for her also to have that experience in New York City, because let's face it, New York City,
it's an experience no matter how you slice it up.
It's just life there is on a fast lane, right? Everything's just going 1,000 miles
unless you're
an hour,
on the traffic, then it's a slow lane.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah, that's a little different. But that's it's just. I remember my life in New York City. It was just, you get out of the bus, you're just walking. You're walking fast here, walking fast there.
I know.
Everything is just
everyone's
sped
walking
up.
fast. It's like
yeah. You just got wherever you're going, you got to get there.
The city never sleeps, right?
Yeah, it's true. Well, it sleeps now, I think.
It sleeps now, and our viewers are going to be going to sleep soon as the show is out, as we're getting ready to close. But before I do close, I always have to thank our sponsors. So as always, we are presented by Emergent Financial Services, and we're powered by Craddock Serious Insurance, Castle Hill Cider, Matthias Realty, and of course Ford Adelante, the premier Latino business networking group here in Charlottesville. I'm Michael. Xavier.
Well, you have somebody coming next week.
Oh, yes. Thank God you reminded me. Yeah. So next week, what you can look forward to is we're going to be joined by Meredith McCrate from Create Without Bonds. I think she's another branding website entrepreneur.
I believe so.
So that should be exciting. There's a lot of marketing, branding, and I think that's one of the beauties about the internet too, is that it's allowed all these people to kind of different marketing. People have their different niches. Like Molly does a lot of marketing for wineries, and other people sometimes like to do marketing for other different types of small businesses.
Yeah.
And I think that's really nice. It's like the internet allows that possibility, because the internet is so vast. There's always a different area where you could be marketing that you may not be thinking. Facebook, Instagram.
And it allows creative people really to shine, right? Because, in the old days, we were talking to Peg a little bit about, to Cass a little bit about this. I call it Peg because I see Peg's.
I know, yeah.
To Cass
Listen,
about
you only
this.
made that mistake once, so I was impressed. I thought the whole time.
I'm going to make that mistake forever, but that's okay. I'm sure she won't mind. But anyway, either way, so she was talking about marketing, right? How in the old days you had the brochures and everything, and I remember, working, and the marketing people come in and they talk to you and they try to come up with the right brochure or whatever. But to a certain respect, it was limited because there's only so many brochures you can create. With the internet, if you have a creative, mind and ability to, develop or make pictures or put words together, whatever it is that you do on the internet these days. It's so, like you said, it's so vast that somebody may have really like a niche. It's like, wow, I can do great things for, pharmaceuticals or for, beauty care or for wine or for salt or whatever. And so the creativity shows up. And so, that's one nice thing about the internet is that if you have those creative juices and you have that marketing background, I think you can do a good job.
Neither of which we have, but that's okay.
Well, that's what I do.
Exactly.
Give me some numbers, and I'm good at it.
Well, as always, thank you, Xavier, for joining me.
Michael.
Big thank you to the I Love CVille for always hosting us. Jerry for having us here. Judah for making us look good. Liza for always being the happiest one to see us.
Always.
And also always thank you to the viewers who watch us and, for your comments and your likes. And thank you to everyone. And to close the show, as Alex always likes to say, hasta mañana.